Good afternoon, everybody. So, as you know, today's world, ransomware is a menace, and I would quickly take you through the anatomy of a ransomware. We would also talk about the latest ransomware, Locky, Zepto, and Otin, which are the latest ones, which have been operating across the globe, and why these attacks are so successful and some practical steps, how you can protect your organization from a ransomware. And the last, I'll also discuss how Sophos can be helpful in mitigating this ransomware attacks. So to give you a little background about the ransomware, which we are talking about now, is a form of malware that encrypts private information files, documents, web server contents, and a range of different things, and hold it to ransom. The style of ransomware goes back to 1986 when the motion Trojan encrypted your hard disk, and after 30 days, it would affect the master boot record. And when and demand for money. The new flavor of ransomware appeared in 2013, and as a fake AV. It started with a fake AV, and then fake AV was trying to extract money. A screen would appear which would show that the company is infected, or the computer is infected, and which pretends that it would scan the system, and then it would say that a load of malware has infected your system, and then it would ask for money. For example, $400, it would ask to, so that you could protect it. And normally the ransomware would be somewhere between 200 to 500 USD. So Locky is one of the newest form of menaces, which a lot of the bad guys have been using in the internet world, and emerged in 2016. Since then, few others have come in. There are many variants of Locky, and we have seen 100% of growth in the ransomware, year over year. And then, it would also be seen in it from the 90s that like micros, help files, HTML files, JavaScripts are being delivered as attachments, and even batch files are there, which actually would deliver the malware. So this is one of the snapshots from Australia Post, where one of my colleagues had received this, and when you look at it, the email is completely different. If you see this, the email address, what it's carrying is not of Australia Post, it's some arbit email address. And and then when the guys actually read this email, they have a curiosity, they try to click a link, and that's where the ransomware starts acting about it. So I would also discuss this. If you see the entire scenario, 31% of the threats detected are from ransomware, and then there are exploits as well. But the ransomware has a major part of it, and if you see that 56% of the Indian business have been hit by ransomware, and there have been attackers who have earned up to 3,94,000 USD in a single month. And if you talk about phishing, 60% of Indian businesses have received these kind of attacks, where they are prompted for clicking a link or opening an attachment, and when they open the attachment, they succumb to a ransomware attack. So I'll just go through a poll, which I would like you to answer, wherein which will talk about whether you have gone through a ransomware attack or not, and I would like you to respond to it. So has anyone been affected by encrypting ransomware? So you have to either answer yes or no. So the poll is open. And I'll wait for 1 minute, and then we'll continue with the presentation. So I'll go to the next slide now. So today's world, we would talk about how you can this ransomwares like Locky and its other variants have been affecting our systems, our networks across the globe. How they've infected, and what are the few steps what we can take to avoid these. So if you see today's world, we have various kind of emails, and you can have various steps of taking regardless of anything else, but it's trying to protect yourself and now give an idea of the threat exposure rate. The worst threat, which what I've seen was a threat called Malali, which actually affected 4 lakh machines across the globe, and it was a havoc which it created. So when we talk about Locky, because Locky is the new menace nowadays, a strain of ransomware has been released, and this is the reason why Locky has been around for some time, and it's been doing very well as a ransomware which has affected so many machines. So what happens in a Locky attack is you actually receive an email document, and the document, it looks like a garbage gobbledygook. The document advises you to enable the macros, and if the data is encoding is incorrect, the bad guys want you to click the option button, which is on the top, and once you click the option button, Locky will start executing it on the computer, and a ransomware screen, your page also changes, and it gives you a page, a background page, which shows an important information, and that's where it prompts you for a ransomware, and it would say that you have to give such and such ransomware, otherwise they would not help you getting your data back. So I would also talk about a hospital which in California, very close to Hollywood, called the Presbyterian Medical Center, which ended up paying 17,000 USD as a ransomware, because the whole hospital was at a standstill for 7 days, because around 2,000 PCs in that hospital were targeted, and they succumbed to the ransomware attack, and and there was a lot of havoc in the hospital, which it made them stand still for almost a week. So there was so much of discomfort which was caused because of this, and that's where as soon as the format demands, but then the result is obviously the same. There's another ransomware which is called the Scepter, which is again the new quid on the block. You again receive an email containing attached doc file or the zip file in a format, and then this again has a JavaScript file that does not immediately, obviously, as a program. The document advises you to enable macros, and the moment you click the option button, again, if you see this option button on your right hand screen, the moment you click that, that's where the JavaScript will start executing, and Zepto will start executing on your PC. As soon as, again, this is ready, it changes your desktop paper, and again, it gives you an important information wherein they demand again a ransom. Normally it's all in the form of bitcoins. Again, another one is called the Odin. Again, this is similarly, first came Locky, and then it was Zepto, and now it's Odin. Again, it is again a zip file, and it may be carrying a JavaScript file, and then as soon as you double click the JavaScript, Odin will start executing on your PC, and encrypted files have their file extension changed to Odin, and these are the if you can see a lot of files will become .Odin extension, and that's where you guys have been hit by ransomware. So this is how the again the screen looks like when you are hit with a ransomware. And then we have Sophos as a brand has some product which is actually a proactive measure, wherein you can install one of the softwares which I'll talk about later, which can actually protect you from the ransomware attacks. Then there are other uh, attacks, other ransomwares. One of them is the CTB Locker. CTB Locker actually, again, it's called the crypto or Bitcoin locker that arrived as an email. This is how it looks like, and as email and or an SMS. And if you click again to retrieve the SMS, it's often with some kind of reassurance that this email has been scanned, virus, but you would have to go through an attachment, and when you open this attachment, the CTB locker runs again. And now one of these things which makes the CTB locker different is the starts encrypting again right away. Most of the ransomware needs to talk to a server, that's the command and control server, somewhere through a process, but CTB locker is starts acting straight away. Then there is another variant which is called the Tesla Crypt. Appears like a blank screen, as similarly, which doesn't have anything. And as soon as Tesla Crypt does not come as a spam, but it comes an exploit in your browser, or it takes an advantage of the internet browser and can result itself to be pretty dangerous. So Tesla Crypt does not come, it comes basically in the form of the browser. Then there is the third one is called the crypto wall. It's an older one. Again, it appears an attachment as a RAR file. If you see, there's a RAR file with JP Morgan Chase. Just that's an example. And again, when you click this again, this starts acting on your PCs. Then there is another variant of ransomware which is called the Torrent Locker, which is kind of a reassessment notice which comes, and obviously there is a button called more information, and you are curious, the user is curious to know, and as soon as the user presses the more information button, that's where everything goes wrong, and it starts encrypting your entire PCs, all the files in the PCs. So if you see, the ransomware, has been prevalent all across the globe. If you talk about the United States or the North America as a continent, you have been, it's been encrypted with the crypto wall, CTB locker, and Tesla Crypt. But if you see in Asia, Tesla Crypt is more prevalent in Asia and the Southeast Asia, wherein if you go down Australia has been affected with crypto wall and Torrent Locker. So this is one snapshot wherein the entire world has been affected with ransomware. So what are these two main vectors of attack? I'll talk about that as well. The mainly two vectors of attack as far as ransomware is concerned. One is, of course, through the spam, and the second one is through the exploit kits. So what happens in a spam is, which is exceedingly common, via social engineering, looks like a plausible sender, and it has an attachment to it. It is geographically related, attached, because if you are in US, you would not get a spam which is related to Australia Post. Their bad guys are using geo IP softwares to find and target the audience, and there could be again in the form of invoice, parcel delivery note, or it can contain embedded macros as well. So as soon as generally these things would be as an attachment, executable attachment. The bad guys have moved to attachments to like doc files. They're also in other formats like PDF, and they have kind of a booby trap in which these JavaScripts starts acting upon it, as I've already discussed about it. And then when you are, again, when you execute these ransomware payloads, everything starts getting encrypted. Then there is the other form of vector attack, which could be through the exploit kits. Exploit are something which you can filter through your emails. It is a tool which scans and tells you what softwares a PC is running. So it is running Internet Explorer, what Chrome or what form of internet browser it's using. With Java, is Java embedded on it or not, or is it using Edge browser, or trying to find unpatched flaws for that matter. So that bad guys run this program without hoping any warnings would come, and they would usually target the web browsers that are used equally by the CryptoWall or the Tesla Crypt. So if you see, there are some snapshots which are there as an example, and one would largely try to use the vulnerabilities on the web browser with the help of the exploit kits. So what actually is going at the background? We'll discuss about the anatomy of an attack. So there are basically 5 steps which an attack are when a ransomware attack happens. So there are 5 steps. As we go, we have the entry point, the first point, which involves the spam, or often in the past things like banking trojans or drive-by exploit. So it is something that you just may happen, and if you look at this kind, there are drive-by download methods as well. So it's basically an entry point, and does not it does not use the browser, but we feel that we are safe, but it is not the case largely, because the bad guys use the hijacked websites, so they can go through these sites which have been taken over. Excuse me. There are many findings and changes from month to month, but largely if you see, they are not these sites which you think are bad, but it could be the infected adware, because of ad shows up of an Opera House website or something else. These Opera loads, they can add to your websites, and if a malicious ad, which is quite often the bad guys load these malicious URL which takes an advantage to the browser. So largely, if you see the adult based websites, they are the least maintained, and normally they'll never be used for infected infecting a ransomware attack. So normally the most popular sites which are used are the blog sites, because these blog sites are never maintained, because they have less they're less secure, and these websites are hijacked because they have a lot of flaws, and they are less maintained as well. So if you see, the next step is the distribution. Generally happens in the background. A hijack site or a link in an email takes you to a distribution site, which will take you through the various redirections, and then it leads the bad guys spread malicious code through thousands of malware distribution sites. And when that redirects the traffic, it would spread like commercial management tool. They're capable of handling millions of redirects, so they keep tracking of what sites are bad, and is a bit of a work, but they still are able to manage it. So when this happens, it tries to use it. Then the third step is the exploit. An exploit is again a browser-based activity, which is our third step. Some of the spam step passes, but loads of them still uses the booby trap document. So exploit pack is downloaded, or you would send it, would send a PDF or some kind of attempt to exploit a flaw in a reading kind of a software. Now this would also then send things down a Taylor package to infect your PC. And what if you've got here is a black hole dashboard. If you see it on your screen on the right hand side, this was running in 2013, but it is the way that there was a setup as $500 month hosted site on their servers, with supporting during the weekdays, and You can see there are, top exploits in Java. Java is quite dangerous, when, it's if it's in the in the web browser. JavaScripts in the browsers are okay, but Java in browsers are very dangerous. So we need to take care of that. And then if you see, the next step is the Angler exploit. Angler's exploit kit is one of the main source of revenue which we've seen coming up in the last 1 year, and more than 50% of exploit is being delivered with the help of Angler exploit kit. So once it happens, it delivers a payload, and as you see the data from the Angler, we have the payload delivered, and all those which are seen with the different types of ransomware attacks, we see a lot of backdoor Trojans, but from ransomware is becoming far from common, and it is an easy source of money. As you see, the Tesla Crypt ransomware, and is one of the highest deliver exploit kit. So once it's executed, when you have downloaded the exploit kit, the bad stuff gets into the action, whether it's CryptoWall or Tesla Crypt, the malware would start, doing its business. If you see this diagram, wherein you have the payloads where they start infecting as a program. At this point, your computer, once it happened, it'll go through the entire attack. Now, one thing with this ransomware is, it also has an arrow backup screen that will actually call out for to hold the public keys which encrypt the data. Most of these ransomware will have an external location. It will not be at the same location, which is owned by the bad guys. And where these bad guys are storing these keys, bad guys always have a private key which is used to unlock these keys, and your computer would retrieve this public key which is used to encrypt and then only the bad guys will have a key to unlock it. So once it's done, generally follows the same path, some form of ransomware, but Bitcoins is one of the most popularly used currency in such cases. So this is what a ransomware demand looks like, and I was talking about the Bitcoin screen. So once these files have been hit, again encrypted, the ransom is demanded depending upon what the damage has been done, and then we need to rely on them for getting our data back, because they have the private key information with them, and they only can give you this data back once it's been a victim of ransomware attack. So instructions are available on the Onion router, which is again a very popular site. The Onion router is kind of accessing the dark web, and it is the place where search engines can't go, and it's anonymized area of the web. It is harder to trace the bad guys' payment in the Bitcoins, because they are not credit card and they do not involve any information to be shared. So these are called the anonymous money, which cannot be traced. So it's like handing over cash to somebody, and now in the ideal world, on payment of these ransomware, bad guys hand over the private key, if they wish, and they hope for hopefully you decrypt your data, because obviously when he would give you the private key, then only you can decrypt the data and you can retrieve your lost files. So you need to trust on these bad guys not to do something bad when they have already done something bad. So bad guys would also give you proof by sending one type of file in a clear text format, which is got decrypted, so that you can actually believe that after you pay, they would give back your data. So then we could have decrypted, and your entire data would be back. But we have seen in our support in the system of our team, labs even in Sophos have often the decryption tool are infected themselves. They've seen the decryption tool getting infected themselves. So once you pay the ransom, you may still be affected by the bad guys. You may have bot installed on your PCs, it is a real hard call, whether you have to give them the ransom or not. But a lot of information is available on our on Sophos Naked Security blog, which is really interesting. You can have a look at that, and a lot of information I shared there as well. So talking about whether paying or not to pay is another discussion for another day. But then there are no guarantees, that would, you can get your, with surety, with full surety, you can get your data back. So in some instances, these keys have been stored on compromised servers also. These compromised servers are owned by somebody else and could be taken, could be again taken away. So the hosting sites can be cleaned up, or law enforcement bodies can also wipe the keys, and it may be possible that your data may be gone forever because you will not probably get your private keys back. So it's a very debatable question, and we because once we get a victim of ransomware attack, we are actually, our neck is actually in the hand of the bad guys, and they can do anything with it. So I've already spoken about the entire the bitcoins and what kind of screen appears while this happens. But then let's look at what we can do about it. There are some possibilities which in terms of preventive policies and some protective technologies which needs to be adhered so that we can avert these kind of attacks. So there are basically as I said, uh, 5 steps of an attack. So at various levels, whether it's been preventive policy or protective technologies, they can be taken care of. So for example, there are, you need to look at the defending against steps, because bad guys will be, will keep on making the softwares against everyone's protection. To protect, to find out ways to go undetected is, another challenge. So what we have at the entry point on the left side screen is, preventive policies. You could be, you could have been, using safe search policies. It is hard to know what is safe, but because of its compromising nature, generally organization with a reputation to protect will take good care of the websites and will encrypt everything. So on the other side, HTTPS can be used, HTTPS filtering can be used, HTTPS scans could be used to filter out the secured side. You could also be using a anti-spam technology or a sandboxing technology on the entry point as far as the protective technology is concerned. So on the distribution front, we have, the next step, what normally people do is on protecting from, do a lookup at the sites for DNS reputations. Are my users or my computers trying to access sites, which came up yesterday or which was only registered yesterday? I see several people visiting, the same entry site which came up yesterday. So the bad guys register 1 or 2 sites every day, and command and control attacks, are used. Command and control centers are used to launch these kind of attacks. So another, we could also, work out algorithms and block those proactively, but which means looking up for a weird website can be very helpful in these kind of protective technologies. So on the exploit front, if you see, around the exploit, you can always put policies or patch systems. You have your operating systems which are unpatched, so it becomes, very vulnerable. So it becomes much and much harder to be compromised. So if you patch them properly, for example, you have Microsoft releases patches, or you have Adobe releases patches, Acrobat patches. So all these, needs to be patched day in, day out, because if these are not patched, they'll give rise to vulnerabilities and encourage the users, to encourage the bad guys to attack. Then on the protective technology, if you ask me, we need to have application control. proper patch management. There are a lot of patch management softwares which are available, to minimize the entire effect. So again, it's a very useful, methodology to protect at the exploit level. So on the infection level, again, we can use the endpoint. Again, endpoint is a major, bread and butter for us also. Endpoint antivirus. So on the infection side, there'll be, last you need to something you get is, talk about the endpoint protection, which needs to be deployed. Sophos, which is a cybersecurity organization and which could cover a huge amount of malware, unknown and known. We also look at deploying, host-based intrusion prevention, which is part of our antivirus, again, which is, on an individual PC level. Again, HIPS, that's the host-based intrusion prevention, is an important part of the endpoint as well. So finally, you're coming to the, execution stage. You have on the preventive front, you have the backup policy where you'd like to back up your policies comes into play, back up your important documents, encrypt. Encrypting ransomware are dangerous, and backing up is one of the most useful activity which is used as part of a plan. You should also have a disaster recovery plan, a policy in place. Detect advanced threat protection is also an important thing. Things which would call home is also an important aspect of this. So which would also help the command and control sites and other types of data. Those can be given indicators that whenever there is an attack, it could shut them down. So apart from this, you have the advanced, web malware scanning. We have malware scanning, looking for things coming down to the endpoint, and the ability to have huge networks of detection centers, and they have the ability to see what kind of malware is coming from different places and monitor these distribution networks and work with an organization to prevent them as well. So, why, does this document malware work? I'll talk about this as well, and then, what's going on with the document malware? Why does it work? People have a habit of, exchanging documents so that they can, benign again. But people do not worry about the documents, which is a standard business. So it is quite familiar. One of the problems, is a lot of people use emails and file transfer protocols, which is again, if I email myself, I will also, one of my colleagues as well. So rather than putting it on the network share, you would like to, see them coming through your email. And you may have booby traps documents, which is very, very common, not keeping the systems up to date, and call to actions, which again means failure. So how does this document malware work? There are some types which are seen. All of them have been interacting at a point where somebody to do something wrong and get infected. This is what happens where you can protect yourself. So you could actually not enable your macros, which is an important aspect, because the moment you enable the macros, suppose in this you have an invoice which is there as an attachment, you open the attachment, enable the macros, that's where the document malware starts acting and encrypting your entire hard disk. So if you see, there are some examples. Again, this Iran engineering trading company organization, there are some content which is disabled. It'll ask you to enable the macros, and the moment you enable these macros, you succumb to the ransomware attack. So again, there is an example wherein you would be opted to open this option button, and the moment you click the option button, again you will fall to the web. So now we want to, I want to quickly go through, one of the newest thing which actually gives an idea, which JavaScript's attachment, and these have shown up in the last few months quite a lot. It may come up as a zip file, as you see here, and inside the zip file, JavaScript inside the browser is controlling by the browsers. So if you you limit you to go, or the on-site where which actually it can write on the file systems as well. So this is how it's an example. So if it cannot, it is in a controlled environment, so people are okay with the JavaScript. But if you run the JavaScript on your computer, it can create network connections, write files, and as a user, it is a huge threat because of these Windows standard policies. It looks like a text, but within within the extension, that's where so if you see these two files, the sample one and the receipt.pdf. So something like receipt.pdf. So one thing which you could do to choose is open it from another application. Most probably we will choose the notepad, and then when you could say always, you could say always open with a notepad. And the moment this happens, if your security control do block it access to the Windows scripting host, that's the command line scripting host. So if somebody does double click on this environment, it won't be able to run through this as well. So talking about why these attacks are so successful, we have some, there are complex threat chains, and it takes a lot of steps to actually run this kind of attacks. Another is the social engineering. By interacting with various users, we will try to pull out information with the help of social engineering. And third is, it does not have to stay. You have to be hit only once. So there's no need of persistence. If I hit one person once, I've done my job. And then of course, if you use your existing technology, maybe a Word document, or it is the embedded Word. So, a lot of ransomware attacks are launched through that as well. And these are highly customized and geographically targeted, because once an attack is launched, there may be, bad guys from different nationalities who could be involved, and you could actually be affecting an organization which may be geographically located in more than one cities. So it is highly targeted and planned when this kind of attacks are launched. And last but not the least, it is lucrative. It is expected that by 2020, the total loss, if you ask me, would be around $1.9 trillion across the globe, with the help of ransomware attacks, which would have done the damage in dollars. The 1.9 trillion is a huge amount of money. So how these attacks can be effects, how these infections are occurred in various organizations, because people are not updating, they're not patching, they're not, it's not uniformly implemented across all the, entire network. So that also is a big flaw. Plus, a lot of administrators have given the users more permissions than required. We should always have security permissions, or the rights permissions, appropriately. It should be optimal. You should not have less privileges, or you should have not more privileges than you're required. So that is another reason why infections actually spread. And then of course, lack of user security training. We do not train our users from time to time. They should be updated on what's the latest viruses on, or for that matter, what is the latest on security. One should always, as a security administrator or a consultant, one should always educate the users about the latest prevalent threats what are there in your across the globe. Then one of other infection major causes is the security systems are not properly implemented, they're not correctly configured. If you may have the strongest firewall, all the endpoint of the world, but your policies are not at all stringent, that is again a loss to the organization. And then, as I told you, lack of IT security knowledge is must for the users. And of course, then we need to see whether our conflicting priorities and security versus productivity concerns should be optimum, because if these securities are too tight and there are productivity losses, that is also not correct. So we should strike a balance on appropriate security plus what are your productivity concerns in your organization. So some practical steps, what needs to be deployed to actually minimize these kind of attacks. One should have the proper endpoint protection with the antivirus protection, because today antivirus is just not an antivirus, it is more than an antivirus, because you have host-based intrusion prevention also embedded onto it. You have some anti-spam features also in it. You can also control data control, wherein you can block the USBs as well. So there are many more features, as far as an endpoint is concerned. Then you need to, as I mentioned, you need to have anti-spam, which could block your spam. We need to, for the unknown threats, we have to use the sandboxing solutions, which is a signature-less technology. Again, a very popular solution nowadays across the globe. And then you should also know about what to block, what not to block, because there are some risky extensions like JavaScript or VB scripts, which needs to be blocked. And then you need to use a proper URL filtering mechanism. And whenever there is a command and control server attack, so we need to understand what kind of attack is it and how we can block this. Then you need to also use HTTPS filterings, as I mentioned, and then you need to activate your client firewalls, whether you're running Windows, which has an inbuilt client firewall. So you need to do the needful as well. And the last, you need to use application control module, because there are a lot of P2P applications like Skype, Facebook, which cannot be blocked by normal HTTP filtering. So we have signature sets which can actually block application to applications, and peer-to-peer applications like Facebook and Skype can be easily blocked with the help of these application control modules. So some of the best practices, what needs to be done is always keep a backup of your files on a offsite, that is, it may be located somewhere else. Suppose your office is in Delhi, you may be backing up on your Chennai server, which is geographically located on a remote site or off-site, where you need to have a backup every now and then. You should have an incremental backup, maybe in a week or in a fortnight's time. Then do not enable macros as far as document attached via emails is concerned. Always be cautious about the unsolicited attachments. Never, click an attachment when you are not sure what it is. You may not be arbitrarily, opening the attachments, because this may lead to trouble and ransomware attack. As I mentioned, do not give yourself more login power than you need. You should have appropriate rights, the login powers, what you need, not more than that. And then you can also be, considering of installing Microsoft Office viewers, which gives you entire picture of what all Microsoft tools have been installed in your network. And then you need to patch and patch your systems, because these softwares which you keep on installing, may give some kind of vulnerability. So there are operating system patches which are released by various vendor, whether it's Linux or Windows or iOS. We need to patch them early, so that before the attacker attacks you, you're already safeguarded your PC and you're ready for an attack, so that you can, disturb that attack. And then, of course, you need to configure your security products correctly, so that they do not, your security does not get hampered, when an attack is launched. Some of the additional steps, what I mentioned, previously also, you need to give employee awareness and training from time to time. They need to be given, some do's and don'ts of security, which I've mentioned in my entire presentation, and I'm reiterating that it is a must, employee awareness and training. Secondly, you need to segment the company network. You may be having different departments, say marketing, sales, or HR. You may be segregating these, assets of the organization, and they may be running on different, VLANs for that matter. Then third is, you need to encrypt your company data, because company data is pretty important, and it is an intellectual property. So one needs to, encrypt company data with the help of encryption software. Sophos also has Sophos Safeguard, which is a very, which is a software which can easily encrypt your data on network, on the cloud, or on the PC. And then you need to use some security analysis tools, whether it's vital, to identify source, what kind of, infection has happened. So you need to use these security analysis tools as well. So how Sophos can help? We at Sophos, recently launched, a tool which is called the Intercept X, which is actually primarily an anti-ransomware only. It is not an antivirus. Antivirus, many organizations are there which are running various kinds of antivirus. But then Sophos Intercept X is exclusively made for ransomware attacks. So no matter what kind of antivirus you're running in your network, you can actually install an Intercept X, which will actually complement the antivirus, and the current antivirus and Sophos Intercept X can run parallelly without any problem. But this has to be a preventive measure, a proactive measure. This cannot be deployed after the attack has happened. It has to be deployed beforehand. So we launched this in the 4th week of September. It's a brand new product, and believe me, this Intercept is doing a great business across the globe, as far as anti-ransomware is concerned. So this primarily has three pillars, I would say. First is the anti-ransomware, then we have the root cause analysis, and third is the anti-exploits. So there are millions and millions of malwares which are across, which are there, found in various networks across the globe. But then there are only a handful of exploit which are there, malware techniques, the methodology which exploits are uses, and with the help of anti-exploits, it actually can monitors all processes for attempt to use of these exploit techniques, whether it's buffer overflow or code injection or other techniques. It blocks all the techniques when it is attempted, and plus malware is also prevented from leveraging the vulnerabilities. This is the first which is pillar, which is called the anti-exploit. Then we have the anti-ransomware, which is called the CryptoGuard. which actually monitors the file access, and if the file is suspicious, it changes or detected, and files are copied as a backup. Few files are copied because after the first few files which are copied, it does not allow the further encrypting of the files. The attack is detected, malicious process is stopped, and as we investigate the process of history, a rollback is initiated, and original files are restored, and malicious files are removed. And last is obviously, there will be forensic visibility as well. You have the user message, you get the admin alert as well, and the root cause analysis, which is the third pillar, are available, because root cause analysis will give you a entire chart or a tree diagram, which actually will show you what kind of processes would have got affected, what kind of changes would have made in the file, what kind of registry keys would have been affected if the attack would have been successful. So again, it is an important aspect. So anti-exploit, then comes root cause analysis, and the CryptoGuard, which actually is the three pillars of Intercept X, which we have recently launched. So this is how the root cause analysis tree diagram looks like. So it shows various processes which could have been affected. It will show you the files which could have been affected, the registry keys which would have got infected. So it gives you entire diagrammatic representation of an attack if that would have happened, if the ransomware attack was successful. But it was not to be because of the Intercept X. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. Any questions, the windows are open, feel free to ask me. Thank you.
The first question from Akshata. Which industry verticals are now vulnerable to ransomware attacks?
Actually speaking, if you ask me, all the verticals are, succumbing to these kinds of attacks. But if you ask me if I have to choose one, I would say banking, finance, insurance, BFSI would be one of the most, because a lot of users are there, and of course they could make the maximum impact. So this would be, probably the most affected. But then on the whole, all industries are equally vulnerable, because you need to have some kind of preventive measure, because as ransomware is going up, attacks are increasing day by day. So we need to really pull up our socks and safeguard our networks and our PCs for this.
Prerna, is it true that ransomware attacks only large corporations and government organizations?
I would not say, because as I mentioned, I have seen even the smaller organizations also, organizations which may be up to 50 nodes, they're also getting infected. Because there is no, it could be a large organization as well. You cannot generalize, actually speaking. So it does not matter, if you're doing a critical work, and if the bad guys want to attack you, you may be a small network, you could actually, succumb to such kind of attacks. So there is, I would not say you can generalize that only the bigger networks are getting targeted. Even the smaller networks are, coming to these kind of attacks.
What questions from Vasir? Should
Yeah,
companies whose computers are running on open source software also need to take necessary precautions against ransomware attacks?
Absolutely. Ransomware could you know be there with any of you know you may be running open source or you know a code from any known organization, any operating system. So all are vulnerable because you know you never know where your attack can actually be launched. So what I would say that you know they are equally vulnerable as the known you know people using the known softwares. So even open source softwares can also be equally vulnerable for that matter.
Next question from Jaya Chandran. Is ransomware attacks only business computers? How about personal computers?
Normally, you know, uh, business computers are largely affected because obviously home computers, you have probably two, three PCs in your home networks, or maybe five for that matter. But what they would largely target would be a corporate. But then I have seen that even home users have actually been affected with ransomware. So you know, I would again you know reiterate the same thing. You know, you cannot generalize who would get. It could be home users also, but largely yes, of course, corporate networks, the government you know networks, or the larger networks, the enterprise networks are mainly targeted because that's where they can make the impact more. They can get their more dollars because their information will be more critical rather than the home user information. So, you know, I would say it's largely for the corporates and the bigger enterprise networks.
Next question from Harsha. Hi, if I already encrypted the drive with BitLocker, is there still possibilities for ransomware attack? If yes, how?
Yes, you know, of course, ransomware attacks are still, you may be encrypting your data, but then, some new files are there coming in and which may not be protected. At maybe the attack may be launched at that time. So, it's kind of a preventive measure which actually does not allow any of your data to get encrypted. So it's a preventive measure rather than if it's the action is already made and then you do it. So it's always a preventive measure. What we do is, so even in spite of you may be having a BitLocker or any other encryption module, I will still recommend you to have a anti-ransomware, because when these ransomware attacks are launched, it's difficult to get back your data. So I would always advise you to have this preventive measure beforehand rather than repenting later on, when you have already lost the data.
Next question from Surender Gupta. If someone infects with ransomware due to any reason, then how can they prevent other system in network?
Yes, a good question. Uh, if somebody is already infected, obviously when a ransomware attack happens, it actually goes over the network folders, network drives, network shares. So, obviously, if you are infected in one PC, there is there's a very much high possibility that your others will also get infected. So what I mentioned, what you need to install softwares like Intercept beforehand. Once the damage is already done, you may not know what kind of impact these ransomware attacks would have, because they actually jump across the networks, across the shares, across the folders. So one has to be very careful when these, you need to have security beforehand. So I would say, if one PC is infected and the others are not, you are lucky, you may, physically you may disconnect from the network, because sooner or later, it would impact your other PCs, or as well. So if you're still lucky that only one PC is got infected, you need to disconnect all the drives, network shares, everything, and isolate the other systems. That's the probably one possibility, one, if you have one PC which has got infected.
Taking our last question as we are short of time. Question from
Yeah.
Kishori Lal. Sophos Intercept can protect before infection as prevention solution, but does it ensure 100% foolproof protection from ransomware?
Yes, of course, as of now, we've not reported anything. It's been launched for the last 1.5 months, and we've had great feedback from all our existing users who've used this. They've never had that, a ransomware attack has happened and it's not been able to detect that kind of attacks. So, but obviously, saying again that it's a preventive measure, it's a proactive measure which needs to be installed, but we've not had a case till now that you've installed Intercept X and still the PC has been infected by ransomware attack. So I have not experienced in the last 1.5 months. So far so good. But then our technology is so robust. We've been able to satisfy our customers across the globe. Thank you so much, everybody.